My name is my name is Dr. Katie Smith, and I am excited tonight to be able to share with you one of my favorite LifeVantage products, which I've been utilizing a lot more here recently. And so it felt really timely when I was asked to present on something and pick something. I was like, well, I've been using this a lot more than I was early on. And so I think it's really highly underutilized and underappreciated. And my doctorate is in nutrition science. And so my goal for you tonight is to kind of hear of all the things that I've looked at over the 20 years that I've been working as a in the health and wellness industry. I've been a registered dietitian, or am a registered dietitian, and an exercise physiologist. So you can imagine I've looked at a lot of different products over the years. And then we'll also get into the Trisynergizer. And I'm really excited to be able to be joined tonight by Angela West, who is a LifeVantage consultant. And she has really great personal and family testimonies to be able to share about both of these products. So we do not claim to cure, treat, prevent, or mitigate disease, of course, but our goal is to be able to help you make an informed choice about your health and to be able to help you see how some of these tools can help you improve the quality of the days that we all have together. So we'll first get started by the Rise AM and the Reset PM, which is our timed multivitamin system. And there are a lot of things that I really particularly like about the timed multivitamin system that we have. One in particular, and here we are already with the slides struggling to advance, but that's okay. Try one more thing here. We're just going to go without it. And when it decides to advance, it's okay. So a timed system, what I mean by that is if you've ever taken a multivitamin before, what you probably are familiar with is that all of your nutrients are packed into one pill. So you take everything at once. And that's actually a disadvantage because when you think about how nutrition is absorbed, your nutrients oftentimes are competing for absorption. So if you're taking everything at once, then those transporters aren't being able to most effectively take in all of your vitamins and your minerals. And so what our time system does is it actually splits and it puts the dosage into a morning complex and into an evening complex. And so that's beneficial for a variety of different reasons. The one that I just mentioned about digestion and absorption, but also because then we can put certain nutrients in the AM system that are helpful to be able to allow you to get going in the day, to feel energized, like those methylated active B vitamins, for example. And then we can put things in the evening system to actually be able to help you calm down at night. So things like magnesium and some calming herbs as well can be used in that 9 p.m. system. I'm going to actually stop the recording here. Actually, cancel. Sorry. For bearing with me. So I think a lot of times that we underappreciate the value of nature. And that's one of the things that I really love about this timed system is because it's uniquely aligned with the natural rhythm and the circadian rhythm of your body. And so the name of the system, Rise AM and Reset PM, think about it as sunrise in the morning and sunset in the afternoon. And I probably didn't put that connection together as quick as I should have when I first was introduced to the system. But it's a really easy way to be able to remember which part is connected at which part of the day. So timing and absorption rates and then those ingredient interactions are really two of my favorite things. But let's dive a little bit deeper into some of the more specific nutrients that I particularly like. And so those specific nutrients are thinking about things like I mentioned before, the methylated B vitamins, which are particularly helpful for actually making your body have create energy in an active form. And then in addition to that, we also have folate or folic acid in methylated form. So it's not folic acid, it's methyl tetrahydrofolate. So if you have the MTHFR gene mutation, this is the form that's actually helpful for your body to be able to utilize. One of the other nutrients that is particularly helpful that I like in this system is chromium. And again, I have a slide on this, but we'll decide if it wants to share it with you or not. And chromium is really good for blood sugar balance. So chromium is one of the herbs, if you are familiar with our natural GLP-1 activator system that really targets insulin resistance. Chromium is also in that system. but we have it in both our AM and our PM because we need help with blood sugar control 24 hours of the day. And so a lot of people, I think, overlook that, and definitely not something that I typically see in most other multivitamins. I also really like the complex in when we look at our micronutrients. So when I'm thinking about thyroid function, we have to be able to support thyroid function from two different approaches. So we have to be able to actually have gut messages sent to the brain, so the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland, to actually tell thyroid stimulating hormone to tell the thyroid to be able to make inactive thyroid. Okay. So we have to have good quality gut function to be able to have that message sent to the brain. And then we have to have optimal brain function as well. And so a lot of the nutrients are supporting things like nerve transmission in the multivitamin to be able to support that. And one of them is choline. And so choline is something that I love for a variety of different reasons. As I mentioned, the nervous system, if you're familiar with neurotransmitters, which are chemical messengers in the body, acetylcholine is one of them, and it is derived from choline. And so we have choline in the timed multivitamin system. The other thing that choline is really particularly helpful for is for early neurocognitive development. So I'm talking development of the brain, even before someone were to find out that they were pregnant. So very early on in utero. And so I really like this when I know someone is thinking about potentially trying to become pregnant, because we have to have a lot of these nutrients in our body before conception happens, because oftentimes by the time that we actually find out that we are expecting, we have passed what are called critical windows of development. So we can't go back and replace for what's already been developed. And so making sure that we have a lot of the micronutrients on board prior to is incredibly important. So choline checks a lot of boxes from a functional health standpoint. The other thing that I'll say about choline, not specific to the multivitamin, but just because when I think of choline, I think of one of our best eggs or food sources is eggs. And as a dietitian, I think I would probably be doing you a disservice if at some point I didn't give you some type of food advice in the presentation. So I am here to tell you, do not be fearful of eggs, and please eat the whole egg, because if you only eat your egg whites, you're actually leaving all of the choline. You're not getting that because it's found in the egg yolk. So the myth about being worried about your cholesterol levels is far outproved. We were actually the last country in the world to get rid of our dietary cholesterol recommendation. So eat your eggs to be able to get your choline, which is really, really important for a variety of different reasons. So we talked about blood sugar regulation. We talked about methylated B vitamins, which is helpful for brain health, which means that that's supporting your mood and being able to be active with your energy levels as well. And then we also want to touch on the micronutrients. So back to thyroid function, when we've targeted gut and then that message gets sent to the brain, hopefully then we're making enough inactive thyroid hormone. But now the thyroid actually has to be able to activate that thyroid hormone. And in order to be able to do that, again, it relies on gut health. So appropriate amounts of fiber, another reason that I love our GLP-1 system, because you've got 13 grams of fiber in that. But then we need micronutrients like selenium, zinc, iodine, magnesium, okay? We have those in our multivitamin. And so I think those are really important to kind of think about the variety of different things that the thyroid is connected to. So if you take the thyroid and what the thyroid is connected to in other systems, it can directly send a message to your adrenal glands. And your adrenal glands are what produce your stress hormone of cortisol, right? So you've probably all heard a lot of buzz around your stress hormone and cortisol. Well, that comes from your adrenal glands, and your adrenal glands can get a message from the thyroid. But your thyroid can also send a message to the ovaries. And so when you're thinking about like reproductive hormone, right? So you've got what's going on in the thyroid can also then downstream impact the ovaries as well. So I can't emphasize enough a good quality multivitamin. That's always been one of the staples that I recommend to people. Good quality multivitamin, omegas, and vitamin D. And so I know tonight isn't necessarily about our Omega Plus product, but I absolutely love the efficiency of that product because it not only combines a variety of different types of omega fatty acids, 3, 7, and 9, but you also get what I call a maintenance dose of vitamin D in there. And so it's another very efficient system when we're thinking about building the foundation of micronutrients. So in a day and age where our macros get all the attention, right? Your carbohydrates, your proteins, your fats, we really tend to overlook tracking or thinking about getting the right amount of micronutrients. And so micros are actually what make the magic in the macros happen. At this point, I'm going to stop for just a second, and I am going to let Angela West share her personal family story with you about the timed multivitamin, and then we'll go into the Trisynergizer.
Hi, I'm Auntie. Can you hear me, Katie?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have a 13-year-old boy, and about when say puberty hit, we started getting some concerns going on with him. But we went to several different doctors. Every doctor gave us a different diagnoses of him, ADHD or anxiety. I think there was a couple other ones too, but either way, we didn't want to go down that path. So we were seeing a natural doctor, and we were on a lot of different things. But then when I met Katie, she kind of looked at what we were already taking and said, well, try these. We were doing the Axio and Nerf 1 and 2 with him and having great luck. But when we added the AM and PM, we were already taking passion flower and magnesium for him for bed so he could fall asleep because he had troubles falling asleep. But when we switched to that one, we even had a teacher just come up to me that day, like, I don't know what you gave him, but his mood just completely changed. So just with the good night's sleep, with the PM, or if it was the vitamin B's in the morning with it, it worked. It's done great. And I've used it myself, and we're just really happy with that product.
One of the things that I think is really fun to add on to that is that last night Angie hosted an in-home event, and there were 2 other teachers that were there, and we were telling this story about how the teacher had reached out to Angie the day after they tried the evening product, and the 2 teachers that were sitting there were like, I visibly remember that day. Like, it was that big of a difference. They could remember the one specific day that made the impact for that child. So that really kind of gave me chills last night to be able to hear that from 2 additional people. Okay, so we are going to move on now to the next product that I wanted to talk about tonight, which is the Trisynergizer. And some of you may already be familiar with this, but what you may not be as familiar with is that you can actually bundle this with our timed multivitamin system. So I'm going to start from the very beginning, just in case we have new people joining us tonight. And the Protandem series is actually where LifeVantage started from. So the activation company is called as such because we use herbs, Protandem in particular, to be able to activate our gene activity, okay? So we take activators to be able to have our body make our own X, Y, and Z. So for example, with Protandem, we are making our own antioxidants with Protandem Nerf 2. We're making glutathione. Antioxidants help to be able to decrease free radicals, which cause oxidative stress. And those are big fancy terms that I'm going to go more into. We also then help our body make mitochondria and make mitochondria more active. So you might remember from high school biology how that is the powerhouse of your cell. That's actually making the ATP that's giving you the energy for your cells, not just you to feel like you don't have to take a nap, but it does help with that. But for your cells to actually be able to have the fuel that they need to go and do all of the things that you need to do. And then to be able to make your own NAD+, okay? So let's dive into each of these just a little bit more. Where it all started was with Protandem Nerf 2. And so as we age, our levels of stress increase, right? That is known, very well documented. We feel that, but our internal organs and our cells feel that as well. And they feel it in a different way than we do. So they feel it in terms of oxidative stress. So with this graph, you see on the red line that as oxidative stress increases, then, or as we age, oxidative stress increases. But when you take Protandim Nerf 2, that's actually mitigated on average by 40% in 30 days and reduced by 70% in 90 days. So if you are wondering, well, what the heck is this oxidative stress then? I challenge you right now to just Google oxidative stress and a pain point that you have in your life, okay? This image will show you how oxidative stress is linked to almost every single organ system, if not every one that's listed there, and a variety of different dysfunctions of those organ systems suffering from excessive oxidative stress. PubMed is a research database that we often use in the clinical world. And so if you Google oxidative stress in there, you will find over 300,000 research studies that are discussing oxidative stress. And what's interesting about this is I just updated that number here about a week ago, and that was up 11,000 from January. 11,000 in just half of this year. So I think that is a huge understatement, but also a powerful statement to be able to share that really the root cause of so many things that we are experiencing in our bodies comes down to our cells feeling the stress even more so than what we feel in signs and symptoms on a day-to-day basis. And so particularly what I said I would talk a little bit about more tonight would be things like fertility. So I mentioned a few things in our timed multivitamin that I really like, but I also really like reducing oxidative stress for fertility. So these are just quick Google images that I threw in here today to be able to kind of give you an example of what I want you to go and look at after this or during this, is to be able to think about, well, how might oxidative stress either be impacting me right now, or how might mitigating oxidative stress help me with things that I'm thinking about in the future. So it says oxidative stress significantly impacts fertility in both men and women. If you look at the middle box, it talks about thyroid function and oxidative stress being closely related. And then the last one is talking about a strong connection between the development and progression of autoimmune diseases. So if we think about, now that I'm not sharing it in full screen mode, this slide looks a little bit messy, but that's where the freeze was happening. So I'm just going to go through the herbs because some of you may be familiar with the herbs that we utilize in the Protandim series. Now, what I want you to think about with this name is that what a lot of people don't know about herbs is that they are designed to actually work proactively, more effectively in tandem with each other, okay? Not necessarily on a one-on-one basis. And so I have utilized these with people in the past individually, just because that's more often the type that you see them available, more readily available, and prior to me knowing about activation. But they didn't have the same impact, okay? So like our original flagship product, Protandim Nerf 2, we utilized turmeric, milk thistle, green tea, ashwagandha, bacopa, things that you may already recognize, right? A lot of people are utilizing turmeric to be able to decrease inflammation. You may be less familiar with milk thistle, but milk thistle is specific for liver function. So I have taught in the last 10 years, and I teach a lot of anatomy, physiology, clinical pathophysiology. And I always tell my students, if you are taking an exam that is asking anything about what organ does X function, and your option is a liver, and you don't know what the answer actually is, the best educated guess oftentimes is the liver, because the liver has over 500 functions in the body. And so we need good liver health for a variety of different reasons. Ashwagandha is oftentimes familiar to people too, because it's an adaptogen that is utilized most notably as a calming or anti-anxiety type herb. Then when you think about our next part in the series, the Protandim Nerf 1, that particularly targets the mitochondrial function. So again, that energy powerhouse of the cell. So things like alpha-lipoic acid, quercetin, CoQ10, those are some familiar herbs that oftentimes people have heard elsewhere as well, that we're putting now 5 more herbs in tandem with each other. And then our third part of the series, the Protandim NAD, This is what I call the metabolic waste trash garbage man, right? So it is taking the junk, the metabolic byproduct from our cells and being able to get that excreted in our bodies. And so if you've heard about the impacts of intermittent fasting, the benefits of intermittent fasting is allowing your bodies to be able to remove that cellular waste. And that's because it increases what's called sirtuins in the body. So caloric restriction actually increases sirtuins by 94%. Taking Protandim NAD, which allows you to make your own NAD plus, actually increases that sirtuin activity 100%. So it's a very similar impact in terms of being able to support cellular turnover and removal of cellular waste without the intermittent fasting. Now, I say that again, thinking back to food first and kind of how we eat throughout the day. Our bodies are not designed to be digesting food 24 hours out of the day. So while it might have sounded like I said, hey, I don't have to fast, we should all naturally be fasting at minimum while we're eating or while we're sleeping during those 7 to 9 hours. Hopefully we're not eating right up until the point that we go to bed, because that can impact your sleep quality as well when your body is trying to digest your food. And then possibly not eating right away when you wake up in the morning, you might easily be closer to like a 10 or a 12-hour fast, which is completely sufficient. And then in tandem with NAD also helps to be able to really clean out that metabolic waste. I remember when I shifted, so my activation story personally started with Protandim Nerf 2, the blue bottle, and our liquid activated collagen. So I don't have time to speak tonight too much about the collagen, but if you have questions, please reach out to the person that invited you tonight, because I'm sure that they would love to share with you more about collagen. And then I upgraded to myself to this full Trisynergizer as a birthday present to myself this year. And I could feel a difference when I went from the Protandim to the full Trisynergizer. And so I shifted being able to take my Trisynergizer from at breakfast time to in the evenings for about a week or so. I took it right when I went to bed, because I could kind of feel my body getting rid of some things during that time period. And then after about a week, I went back to taking it again in the morning, and I felt really, really good. What I want to show you next now is just a visual, because I'm a visual learner. When we again talk about activation, it is different than supplementation, because supplementation is like taking things and using a Band-Aid, okay? You are artificially and temporarily fixing a problem with a supplement. When you activate your body and you give it the ingredients to be able to make its own, instead of giving the supplement, you are like stocking your kitchen pantry with your ingredients to be able to feed an army of people anytime they walk into your house, right? Think how effective and how handy that would be. Coming from someone that lives 20 miles from a grocery store, food deserts are a real thing. I would love that capability, right? And that's exactly what you have the option to do with the Protandim Trisynergizer, is that you can always keep your body completely stocked with the herbs. It's like 13 or 15 herbs when you put all three together that are protandemly working more effectively than any of them would alone, okay? So let's start on the left-hand side of this figure. You see the genes that are directly impacted by taking Protandim Nerf 2. So we're increasing our body's own antioxidant production, and we are simultaneously, with activation of a different gene, improving our inflammatory response. So we activate these genes by 40 and 50% with Protandim Nerf 2 alone, okay? When you add in the Trisynergizer, those gene activities go to 78%, and look at this one, 848%, okay? Massive increase by adding extra herbs that are uniquely designed in the right amounts. So micro doses, okay? That's another big difference between supplementation. Oftentimes supplementation is you're getting a really high amount in order to be able to make sure that you get something absorbed from it, okay? But you don't have to worry about that when you're not giving yourself the artificial supplement to be able to tap on the Band-Aid, right? You're giving yourself the direct ingredients for your body to be able to make the recipe itself. And you see very similar impact with your Nerf 1 for mitochondria and metabolic genes that are activated with NRF1 by itself compared to the Trisynergizer. And then when you think about your cellular recycling pathways with NAD, you see that same impact. Another thing that I love about the Trisynergizer alone is that you can order them. On the left-hand side, you see the 3 individual bottles, but I highly recommend getting them in these packets because then you're not opening 3 bottles. And you can just rip open 1 packet a day, super convenient for traveling, and then you have everything that you need. So really effective for compliance too, which is going to make you feel better if you're more consistent about actually taking it every single day. So this is an example of the stacks that maybe you were familiar with the multivitamin prior to this or some of the Protandim series, but maybe you didn't recognize that there are a variety of ways that you can combine these together. So you could get AM or PM completely by itself. You can stack A and PM together, or you can put AM and PM with 2 of the Protandims, what we call our dual synergizers. So that's the Protandim Nerf 2 in the blue bottle, and then your Protandim Nerf 1 for mitochondrial function. Or you can stack it, always the best value to be able to put AM, PM, and then the Trisynergizer, all 3 things together. So I am going to, it says story time on the slide for those of you that are watching. And it is conveniently, at least here in the central time zone, the sun is getting close to setting, so 8:30. So we're going to wrap up with our last story for the evening with Angela sharing about her personal experience now with the Trisynergizer and multivitamin.
So with my, I guess, personal story as the Trisynergizer, I started out with just Nerf 1 and 2 and the collagen. I have rheumatoid arthritis. I've had it for, try to think here how long ago it was, probably about 28 years ago. I was diagnosed with it. But I had been able to kind of conquer it pretty much by eating the right foods and taking the herbal medicines and stuff like that. But I had a huge flare up this winter, and I just could not beat it. And I really did not want to go back to the RA doctors. And I saw Katie was doing a speak, and I thought I'd reach out to her. But with that, she said, well, you should really try the Nerf 1 and 2 and the collagen and see what it works, how it works. And I could tell it was working. I was a little impatient after about 3 weeks or so, and I kept on looking to see what everybody else was using that kind of had symptoms like I did. And they added that NAD to it. And kind of like Katie said, the first week of being on NAD, I it felt like I was taking out the trash. I felt yucky. But after that week, it was just smooth sailing from there. Every day got better. Every morning got better. It was a hard season of my life because it was to the point where my mornings probably, it took a good hour to get moving. I had to have my husband help me out of bed, and just my kids were carrying all my stuff to my car and into the school. So it was definitely a blessing to feel relief. And it nothing I think ever comes as fast as you want it to, but it took about 2 to 3 months to feel what I'm feeling now, and I feel great.
I think that's a really important point too that Angie made, that sometimes if you do go through a transition where you might feel like you're taking a step backwards before you move forward, that any change that you're feeling is a sign that your body is reacting, and that can be progress. So to be able to have to go 1 step forward backwards to go 2 step forwards, why it might be frustrating at times, I think it's really important. And I intentionally wanted us to be able to share those personal parts of our stories, because I want, not everyone's going to feel that way, but I want you to know that that's okay. And I don't want you to doubt. I want you to trust the process and know it's very similar to gut health, right? If you introduce more fiber to your diet, sometimes you can feel the difference. Like some people will message me and say, oh, I've got X, Y, and Z symptoms. Yeah, well, that's a sign that your bacterial composition in your gut is changing. And so we are moving things forward. We're making change. So we really appreciate you tuning in tonight. and I am happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.